Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Rotary. David Eidson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation, followed by Betsy Higgins, who will be playing the national anthem this morning. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Catherine. First of all, how about a Go Braves? Congratulations. I don't plan on including the Braves in my invocation, but I thought I have made some promises in the ninth inning of certain games to my God on things that I would do, so you guys might have to hold me to it, but thank you for getting us to this point. Let us bow our heads. Dear God, we come to you today with great humility. We ask for your blessings on this club, our members, our community as a whole, with particular attention to those that we may have left behind. We also pray that you give us discernment as we enter the voting booth and elect political leaders locally. We also pray that those leaders will serve our communities with open minds and hearts, and that the partisanship we have endured might turn towards healing and common ground. Help all of us in this club be examples of finding common ground and living our motto of service above self. Dear God, we are thankful for all of your blessings. We are thankful for our members' commitment to improving our communities. We are thankful for our health and our well-being. We are thankful for the food being served today, and we are thankful for the hands that prepared it. Thank you for all of these and our other blessings. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Enjoy your lunch. Good afternoon. Welcome again to Atlanta Rotary. I am going to add my Go Braves to David Edson's comments in the chorus of Go Braves. I know I will be wearing my Jocktober beads this week, and congratulations as they head to the World Series. We have such an exciting program today. Atlanta Rotary is thrilled to be hosting a very important announcement this morning, and we have a terrific program planned with our featured speaker, Chris Womack, President and CEO of Georgia Power. In honor of our program, we have a number of special guests today. I would like to recognize each of them. If you could please stand and remain standing when I call your name. First, several guests of the Atlanta History Center: Howard Palevsky, John Schlesinger, Claire Haley, and Paul Crater. Guests of Norfolk Southern Corporation: John Hatfield, Lysandra Boykin and Connor Spielmaker. And two guests of Georgia Power, Mike Anderson and Mayu Arita. Welcome, all of you. We have several visiting Rotarians as well. Excited to have each of you here. If you'll please stand. Marilyn Morgan is visiting from the San Jose, California Rotary Club. Mark Meltzer from the Buckhead Club. Katie Rocco, who is president-elect of the Alpharetta Club and a guest of Richard Kramer. And Carmen Lamotte from the Altamont Springs, Florida Club. Welcome to all of you. And finally, a series of guests, of members, of fellow Rotarians. If you will also please stand. Howard Melton, guest of Steve Lewis. Chandler Brown, guest of Bob Hope. Steve McCabe, guest of Glenn Mitchell. Lee Birdsong, guest of Dave Fitzgerald. And Stephanie Hanley, also guest of Dave Fitzgerald. Jamel Thompson, guest of Chuck Easley. Philip Leopold, guest of David Romer. George Morey, guest of John Morey. And Eve Powell, guest of Milton Little. Welcome, all of you. It's great to have so many guests. It's very exciting to have all of you here. Also, a few announcements. Congratulations go out to Rotarian Ted Bloom, who recently received the Hope Award at the annual dinner of Wellspring Living, and this was in recognition of his heroic work in the fight against human trafficking. As you know, so much of that work occurred as he led our Atlanta Rotary Task Force on that topic, so congratulations to Ted. Also, a reminder that early voting has begun for the November 2nd election. You heard some very helpful and insightful comments recently here at the club from Dave Stockard, and I really want to encourage all of you to vote early. That early voting ends this Friday. If you have any questions, you can go to the Georgia My Voter page to find voting locations and logistics information. But please vote, and we all know what an important election this is. Our final announcement is from Stephanie Blank.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who might know my partner in crime, Wanya Lucas, and we got paired through the Atlanta Friendship Initiative. And it was such a huge success for the two of us. We're fast friends that, as you can see, we started sleeping together. This was in 2017, and this was for the Covenant House Sleep Out. We did it last year as well on my back porch due to COVID. We actually slept on the porch all night long. And this year, on November 18th, which is a Thursday, Covenant House is having their annual Sleep Out again. As you may know, this club has been huge supporters of Covenant House. Clark Dean, David Lewis, and Bob Hope are all on the board. I know Robert Ballantyne and Martha Brooks. And how many of you have actually slept out for Covenant House? Wow, it's a huge portion of you. So there are approximately 3,300 homeless youth in our city. 30% of those youth have been sexually trafficked. 40% of them have been in the foster care system, and 43% of those children have some form of PTSD. That doesn't take into account all of the mental health challenges that they also have as well. So our club has a chance to make a difference by participating in the Sleep Out. This year, it's a little different. It's still very COVID safe, and you have the opportunity to sleep in your car as well if you don't want to sleep on the ground. I'm a big fan of the Thermarest. So if you have any interest, you can see Clark, Bob or David. I know Bob and David are here. I don't know about Clark, if he's here today. But I hope that you will join us in this wonderful, wonderful event to help stand up for kids and get them up off of our streets. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I know this has been a really important initiative for our club, so I do encourage all of you to please participate or support those who are participating. As so many of you know, Atlanta is grateful to be the headquarters of many of the top Fortune 500 companies, and we're honored that Norfolk Southern Corporation is the latest to join that list. In a few weeks, the new Norfolk Southern headquarters will open in Midtown, and it is spectacular. In fact, the club is working on plans for our next Rotary on the Road to be hosted at the new headquarters building. The railroads are clearly at the heart of our history. Without the railroads, Atlanta would not even exist. Our city was the first railroad town, and it established the model that eventually would connect America from coast to coast. Ironically, it was actually on the railroads, on a train in 1913, that plans were created for our Atlanta Rotary Club to be hatched. So today we are pleased to welcome a very special guest who will be making an important announcement. Jim Squires is the chairman and CEO of Norfolk Southern Corporation, and he will be joined by our friend and fellow Rotarian Sheffield Hale, CEO and president of the Atlanta History Center. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you also, Bill Hennigan and David Rubinger, for allowing us to make this important announcement at the Atlanta Rotary Club. And thank you, Chris, for letting us share the podium with you this afternoon. Today, I'm pleased to announce that our company is donating the complete collection of historical documents from the archives of Southern Railway Company to Atlanta History Center. Southern Railways operated from 1894 to 1982 when it merged with Norfolk and Western to form Norfolk Southern Corporation. But the company's history stretches back even further, 194 years through more than 200 predecessor companies. You'll hear more about that company's remarkable impact on Atlanta in just a moment. The collection includes hundreds of thousands of pages of correspondence, minutes of corporate meetings, construction plans for rail stations and yards, and much, much more, including more than 20,000 photographs. The history of Southern Railway is inseparable from the history of this region, and this treasure trove of material belongs in Atlanta. There's no better home for it than the Atlanta History Center, under the care of Sheffield Hale. The archives will further strengthen the center's impressive collection of railroad history, and we want this history to be accessible to scholars, students, amateur historians, and anyone who loves railroads. So that's why we are also making a contribution of $500,000 to support the preservation of the archives in perpetuity. Moving our headquarters to Atlanta starts a new chapter in our company's history. With access to this city's world-class technology and business talent, we will once again make Atlanta a center for railroad innovation and industry leadership. The contribution demonstrates our intention to be an engaged member of our community. Sheffield, thank you for your vision and leadership. Our history is in good hands.
Thank you so much. All right, so you're going to get a little bit of history here. Sorry, we're going to do it MTV style, so it's going to be quick. All right, I want your attention span to dissipate. But we are so grateful to Norfolk Southern for adding these Southern Railway records and photographs to our collection at Atlanta History Center, and for providing the resources to make them available to the public on-site and off-site. The collection contains photographs, drawings, and corporate records dating back to the earliest years of Southern Railway and its 200 predecessor companies. The lines which make up Southern Railway remain an important part of Norfolk Southern's modern 19,300-mile railroad network. Atlanta grew up with Southern Railway, and it has always served as its center of operations. The first railroads chartered in the state of Georgia was the Central Railroad and Canal Company, founded in 1833. That railroad ultimately became part of Southern Railway. During the Civil War, railroads were critical to both the United States and Confederate war efforts. Atlanta was a key strategic position as a transportation hub, and its population had ballooned from 6,000 to 20,000 people. Its fall ensured Lincoln's reelection and the ultimate victory of the United States forces over the Confederacy. After the Civil War, railroad builder John Thrasher bought and developed land located north of the city along the proposed route of the Atlanta and Richmond Air Line. He named a new town after the former Atlanta mayor, one of the organizers of that railroad, Jonathan Norcross. The Atlanta and Richmond Air Line Railway became Southern Railway's main line connecting Atlanta to the center of northern commerce and remains a very active route today. Southern Railway was organized and financed by J.P. Morgan in 1894 and led by Georgian Samuel Spencer. It recruited textile mills and other industry to the south, supported Georgia's agriculture industry, brought the materials that built our growing city, and heavily promoted the 1895 Cotton States Exposition to northern audiences. Southern Railway moved more passengers to and through Atlanta than any other carrier of its time, just as Delta Airlines does today. Southern's trains were also there for us during World War II, when over 10,000 people per day passed through Atlanta's terminal station. During the 1960s, just after the population of Atlanta exceeded 1 million, Southern doubled down on both its railroad technology and the future of Atlanta. At a time when other railroads are still using telegraph keys, Southern invested in microwave telecommunications and mainframe computers to run its railways. The operations headquarters, the Southern Railway System Control Center, was located here in Atlanta. One of its main repair facilities, the Pegram Yards, was here, and so was its most important freight yard, Inman Yard. Today, all of Norfolk Southern's trains, which serve 22 states plus District of Columbia, are controlled from Atlanta, and Inman Yard is thriving. During the mid-1970s, when Atlanta's population reached 1.4 million, many other railroads were going broke. Not so the Southern. Dunn's Review named the profitable and well-respected railroad one of the nation's best-managed companies. So it's no wonder that when Georgian in the White House, Jimmy Carter, needed a Secretary of the Navy, he recruited Southern Railway CEO Graham Claytor. Starting in the 1970s, Southern took on the trucking companies, and made them partners as an early adopter and promoter of a new system of intermodal shipping. It's common to see freight trains today extensively laden with ocean-going container freight or tractor-trailer loads, but these sites were rare and even unimaginable in the 1970s. Southern Railway merged with Norfolk and Western Railway in a merger of equals in 1982 to create Norfolk Southern. Southern once called itself the railway system that gives a green light to innovation. Today, we're fortunate to have companies like Norfolk Southern that have a culture of innovation in their corporate DNA to rise to the challenges our nation is facing, such as our supply chain. Understanding that DNA through corporate records available to the public helps provide context to us all. This context includes, for example, the history of the communities that the railroad served and the realities those communities faced: segregation, labor conditions, world wars, energy crisis, and other historical challenges. These records include correspondence, photographs, contracts, and other documents that can help us understand the many people who built the railroads, those who worked in its day-to-day operations, and the people and the businesses that relied on the industry. That's why we preserve corporate history at our archives at Atlanta History Center, and we want to do more of that. Atlanta History Center is honored to preserve this key part of Norfolk Southern's history, a business history that's really just another way of looking at our collective and rich history as Atlantans. Thank you, Jim, and your many generation of archivists for this great civic gift.
Jim and Sheffield, this is such a big deal for our city, and we are deeply honored that you're here with us today to make this announcement. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. I'm now pleased to introduce our friend and fellow Rotarian, Dave Fitzgerald. Dave not only is a giant of Atlanta's ad industry, but he's also quite the model of Rotary's motto of service above self. Dave is the president and CEO and founder of Fitzco, Atlanta Advertising Agency. He's the former president of the Atlanta Ad Club and the former chair of the American Association of Advertising Agencies Atlanta Council. He's also been very involved in community areas such as the keyboard roles with the Cristo Rey High School, St. Joseph Health System, and even leading Atlanta's St. Patrick's Day Parade. Please join me in welcoming Dave Fitzgerald.
Thank you, President Kelly. You know, it's an honor for me to introduce my good friend, Chris Womack. It's an odd task in this room because Chris is known to almost everyone here, but I'll give it a try. You may know Chris as Chairman, President, and CEO of Georgia Power, as former President of External Affairs at Southern Company, as a board member of Invesco, a former legislative aide to Leon Panetta, or as a consumer advocate working with Ralph Nader, or maybe as chairman of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, or of the Atlanta Sports Council, or chair of the East Lake Foundation, or chair of the Alliance to Save Energy, or a member of the national board of First Tea. This is the Chris Womack that is known to many of us. But let me tell you about the much younger Chris Womack in his formative years. Chris was raised by a single mom who taught school in the booming metropolis of Greenville, Alabama. Now, if you, like most people, have never heard of Greenville, join the crowd. But let me orient you. It's east of Pineapple. Pineapple, by the way, is two words, Pineapple, Alabama. It's west of Luverne, Alabama. It's north of Red Level, Alabama, and south of Lettahatchee. So do you have it? You got a picture of that? Yeah. Of course you don't, because it's in the middle of nowhere. But it's a place with no opportunity and certainly no concept of upward mobility, especially for a young black kid growing up in the 60s in that part of the world. A time and a place of waiting rooms and lunch counters and schools and drinking fountains that were for white people only. He left Greenville to attend Western Michigan University, where he received his bachelor's degree in political science. Maybe political silence would have been a better, I'll just say. He went on to earn a master's degree from American University and is currently pursuing his doctorate in political science at Clark Atlanta. Along the way, he completed the Stanford executive program. Not bad for a little kid from Greenville. When he was 8 years old, his mother drove him to Birmingham. It was the first time he saw buildings over 2 stories, and he was in absolute awe of them. He said to his mom that clearly really important people are doing really important things in these buildings, and he'd certainly never in his lifetime be a part of it. Well, he's now sitting in the corner office of a 24-story office building, running a $47 billion company with over 8,000 employees. Not a bad deal for a little kid from Greenville. It's a remarkable story. Let's hear more. Please welcome my good friend, the Chairman, President, CEO of Georgia Power, Chris Womack.
Dave, thank you for that introduction. You're supposed to ask the first question, right? How are we going to do this?
We're going to do a conversation about the company and about Chris.
You take this one.
He always tells me what to do, and it's worked pretty well. We're going to have a conversation with Chris about the company and his life, and we've decided to do it with me playing kind of the Tucker Carlson to his Bernie Sanders. We'll see how this works out. That's what you agree, right? So first about the company, you've been there for 4 months, what are your top priorities now that you're CEO?
First of all, let me say thanks, and this is weird sitting here because I know a lot of you, some of my closest and dear friends, the Lee Birdsongs of the world, the Theron Johnsons, people that I love dearly, Keith Masons, who we've all grown up together a lot. So it's an honor and a little threatening to be here to kind of expose myself in this way. Top priorities at the company is, first of all, it's you guys as customers of Georgia Power. Many of you affectionately refer to us as the power company. And so, what does the power company do? And the power company keeps your lights on, is there when you need us to be, but we also, is that me? No, but we commit to always being there, and so making a lot of investments in the company today. We've got about $7.5 billion investment that we're looking at over the next few years to make sure reliability is what you need. We're going to work with you on cutting down some of your trees, or at least trimming some of your trees. We're going to put some of your lines underground. We're going to make the system a lot more reliable than it is today, and make sure it's even more resilient. So the first priority is to make sure that each of you are getting the kind of reliable service that you expect from us at a price going forward. Let me say one other thing. 10 years ago today, if you asked me, well, Chris, how is the power company supplying the power? Where's it coming from? What's the fuel source? I'd have told you 7% of the power today was coming from coal. That was coming out of power plants. Our large, big central station generation that was coming from power plants that were making it with coal. Today, probably less than 20% is coming from coal. We replaced that with a lot of natural gas. We got some 2,000 megawatts of solar capacity on the ground today. We just announced a big 85 megawatt battery storage facility that we're putting in place. So everything is looking a lot different, and we're taking full advantage of technology as we kind of make our generation a lot cleaner, a lot more reliable, but also making sure that we pay attention to the cost of the product going forward. So that's kind of things that I'm focused on. I think you may ask me about Plant Vogtle as well going forward, but yeah, that's kind of a lot of things we're focused on.
A great lead in to the second question. Yep. The first nuclear power plant in 30 years in America, Plant Vogtle, much in the news, including this weekend. Can you give us your sense of what's happening and when we're going to be online?
We'll be online next year with the first unit. Probably the second half of next year, we'll get it online. This has been a lot harder than we thought it would be. When we made this decision with the Public Service Commission in 2009, we knew it was the right thing then. We had just come through Hurricane Katrina. Natural gas prices were volatile, and so we thought, to stabilize and have a backbone in our system, we thought nuclear power would in fact be the way to go, and that has not changed. Once again, with volatility in the natural gas business, but also as we move toward more cleaner forms of energy, as you look at more renewables, there's got to be some backbone that's there. When the sun doesn't shine, when the wind doesn't blow, we got to make sure there's a carbon-free source of energy available. And we think nuclear power is, in fact, the way to go. It's hard. This is hard stuff. We never saw a tsunami coming in Japan as we started this project. We never saw the contractor going bankrupt through this project. And we never saw COVID. And as many of you are facing labor shortages and labor challenges, what we've experienced trying to find electricians, other trades, has been a real challenge for us. Not making excuses. We got to get it done. We're going to get it done, and we're going to get it done right, because we think this will be good for you as our customers, would be good for this whole energy mix across this state, but also good for the energy mix across this country. So I'm still very bullish on it. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done right. So you guys made a commitment to be net zero by 2050, which is something I've been working with your company for a long time. 20 years ago would be unthinkable. Can you tell us what
What's the impetus behind this decision, and maybe
Well,
give us the backstory?
It's the whole conversation about climate change and how do you view the environment. And so yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, some 10 years ago, I mean, we were a dominant company that was, I mean, that coal was a dominant force, a fuel source that we had to make energy. We recognize the environmental concerns, and so it's okay. How do you make this transition, and how do you do this in the most cost-effective manner? And so you've seen us retire some 6,000 megawatts of coal plants over the past 6 to 7 years. I mean, so big base load central station generation facilities have in fact be retired. A big part of that is because I never thought we'd see solar be as cost competitive as it has been, as it is today. So we've been able to make that transition. And so we made a decision in 2017 to go net zero by 2050. We're half of the way there already with some things that we've done, and we see the path to get there. Yeah, there's between converting coal plants, putting carbon capture on natural gas facilities, more renewables, more battery storage, some capture on natural gas facilities. We're going to get there, and there's going to be another, I think, incredible technology advancement that will occur between now and then. But it is, in fact, doable, and we're going to be a part of that solution as we go forward, as we meet your needs going forward. So very exciting.
Great. So Michael Lomax was on the stage last week. He's Michael's the president of the United Nations, the UNCF, United Negro College Fund. And he mentioned that the difference between Atlanta and Birmingham during the movement was Birmingham burned and Atlanta didn't. And he gave a lot of the credit to the Atlanta business community, not for noble causes, mostly economic, but at the end of the day, it was good for everyone that the Atlanta business community was involved in the movement. And you've often talked about the influence of business in community, and the company has always been a citizen where we serve. And I know you're a big believer in this. You walk the talk. But can you expound? As a shareholder and a ratepayer, why should I care?
Well, I think we all must care. And let me say it this way. And I always have to be a little careful how I say some things because people may disagree, but I'll say it anyway. I got a message from a friend of mine the other day that someone had saw a post that I had put on LinkedIn where I was reading to some school kids. And the comment was, Womack needs to be worried about keeping the power on. And I said, I was dismissive of that because I think I got to do both. I can't just focus on, and I got a team of folks, Mike Anderson and a lot of other my friends in this company, we're worried about keeping the power on. But I think I also have to read books to school kids because I think in this role today, I think I got to be the CEO, but I also got to be an activist on a lot of different issues. I got to lead around them. And I also say there are certain things that we must look to government to do, but there are a lot of issues today that we're facing that are inherently complex, that are very difficult, that are large and changing and shifting every day, that we can't leave those things simply to government. We in the business community must participate, must be involved, must provide the kind of leadership that we know how to do. Yeah, it's got to be done in collaboration and in partnership, but I think there are some also things that we in the business community have to provide the leadership and make sure that we're driving toward, I think, very positive solutions. I can go through a bunch of different things, but that's kind of my view of the role that I see that I must take and what I challenge a lot of other business leaders to take around a lot of different issues.
So your company's made an amazing $225 million philanthropic commitment to communities you serve. Mm-hmm. To the not-for-profit folks in here, first of all, can you tell us how to tap into that? And second of all, what was the backstory that went into that decision?
A couple of things. If you go back to, say 2018-19, economy's doing very well. Most of our stock portfolios were still growing, but you saw the wealth gap in this country also growing. Haves were having more, and the have-nots were also having less. And so we were sitting around a management table to say, okay, once again, what is our role? Is there something we can do about that? How do we help in that? And so I had also attended a a gathering of some Silicon Valley leaders, and they were talking about the lack of diversity in Silicon Valley. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Google, but there was an incredible lack of diversity in those companies. And so talking with a couple board members, having conversations with Michael and some others, we decided to make the first initial commitment to historically black colleges and universities of $50 million. And that was the view that encouraging those universities to make investments in curriculums, focus on data analytics, focus on coding, focus on the things that the Silicon Valley firms were looking for, that as these students graduated, they got jobs in those companies. That's a real immediate way to help change some lives and really make some lives better and really focus on an area that hadn't been focused on to help close those wealth gaps. So that was the initial focus there. Then as we got into kind of this whole post-George Floyd era, and a lot of companies and a lot of us had to reevaluate kind of what we were doing. And my thing always has been, if we're going to do something, we got to be very sincere about it and not just do a PR campaign. I mean, I love advertising agencies, but I think as
You're the one person in America that does.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I love the creativity. And if you look at post-George Floyd, if you look at a lot of, I mean, there was some incredible, creative, passionate ads that came on after that time, talking about what people were espousing to do, but not a lot about what people were in fact doing in terms of companies. And so I felt, okay, what serious commitment must we make to do certain things? And so I always rely on a lot of experience that I have. I mean, I take Eastlake, for example, and many of you are very, very, very familiar with Eastlake. But how do we replicate Eastlake in a lot of other communities across this community of Atlanta? But how do I also replicate Eastlake in Birmingham, Alabama, in Monroeville, Alabama, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, in a lot of other places where we do business? And so if you look at a lot of the commitments that we have made, that is the model we're looking at. I mean, I sat around with Ann Curry and David Edson, and I talked to Ann, and she walks away with all the budget that I thought I had and desire to do even more, because it's an incredible commitment to how do we really, really make a difference. And so I look at Eastlake going from the highest crime rate zip code in the country, the lowest graduation rate in this state. When you see the kind of results that have happened there, you say, how do we take that? How do we do that in other places? And so that's what we try to do, because I don't have enough money to do it myself. We don't. But if I take that dollar, take my dollar, I lever that up 10 times, I bring government in, I bring others in, that's how we make a difference, and that's how we get stuff done. And that's what's behind all the commitments that we have made around a program inside of our company that we call Moving to Equity. I mean, it's about what we do internal, in terms of our talent, in terms of our work environment, in terms of our culture, but also focused on what do we do externally in terms of supporting disadvantaged and distressed communities, both urban as well as rural. I mean, and so how do we do that? And that's kind of the impetus around a lot of work that we're doing inside the company.
Well, thanks. It's a great segue to my next question. Whenever I ask, he's my mentor in terms of racial equity and social justice, whenever I ask him a very naive question, which is often, he says, Dave, you've been white for a very long time. I want you to listen to me. But as you just alluded to, the company's been you personally and the company have been very devoted to racial equity. Can you talk about you talked a little bit about your company, but how are you engaging your workforce and your communities in what you're doing?
And just like I do with you, just like I do with any of you who knows me, we deal with it very directly. I mean, I do get the historical fascination that this country has with the topic of race. The problem is that we've also been very uncomfortable having very difficult and uncomfortable conversations, so we try to shy away from it. So the foundation of the focus inside of our company is, first of all, we're going to talk, and we're going to listen, and we're reflecting. And that is the basis for which all the work that we're doing is based around us talking, us listening, reflecting, and having a better understanding of each other. Because I don't think we create the opportunity to, in fact, do that. And the second I think, significant pillar about all the work that we're doing is that it's not episodic. I will submit to you today that if you talk to anybody inside of our company, you will find out that the intensity and the energy around this conversation is greater today than it was on May 26th of last year, okay? Because there are a lot of institutions, like I said, that jumped on the bandwagon, that felt bad, and went through some reflection and did a lot of things, but it was not sustainable. They didn't continue it. And the other thing that, and no offense, the other thing that I talk a lot about also inside the company is that white people can't be silent. It's not just a conversation for the black folks inside the company, but I have to make sure, and that's a part of the process, is to make sure that also inside the company, the white folks are also participated in this process. It ain't just something for black folks, for Asian, for Hispanics, for Latinx, for different groups inside the company. And so we're having these conversations. I do this program inside the company called Lunch Table. Lunch Table is just what you think a lunch table is, where you sit around a lunch table, you just have all kind of different conversations, different topics. You get mustard on your lips, ketchup on your tie, but that's what happened at lunch table. So we replicate those conversations inside the companies with all kinds of groups of people. I mean, I've had it with a group of our gay employees. And when you sit around, and we videotape this and we send it throughout the company. And so when you have these kind of conversations and people share their true feelings about feeling left out, about not feeling involved, but we have these conversations. And so inside of our company, when I had this conversation with a group of our gay employees, and they talked about their decision to come out, it moved me literally to tears, because you see the courage that they brought forward in the decision they made, and how they said, okay, and the reaction to how they were received by their coworkers after they made those kind of decisions. That is the rawness, that is the sincerity, that is the energy that we're putting behind this work inside of our company. And that's the kind of challenge I submit that I think we all must do. And if we're going to get past, we'll never get past race. And so let's be honest about that. Okay, we will never get past it. But it's getting to a point where we're more comfortable with it, and we're more honest with it as we go forward, as we run our business, as we run all of our organizations, run all of our agencies, and not look for the government to pass some law to tell us how we're going to behave and how we're going to deal with race. Government can't do that. Government can't do it. This is something that can't be legislated. This is stuff we got to deal with in our hearts and our minds.
A political projection. You may remember 16 or so years ago, you introduced me to a freshman senator from Illinois whose name no one could pronounce, Barack Hussein Obama. You said, this guy's going somewhere. And that worked pretty well for him. But actually, Joe Manchin sent this question in. He said, we've all read a lot about Biden's clean energy program. It's got good things and bad things for utility companies, incentives and disincentives. Where is it? What's going to be the impact of where you think it's going to come out for the company and for us?
I mean, I think they will work something out, I think. But once again, I mean, the politics are so divisive and so sour, I'm never sure. Senator Manchin has an idea that to incentivize us and our company to move toward more cleaner sources, and so there would be a fund available to help us mitigate some of the cost impacts of making a speedy transition to a more cleaner, renewable environment. And so I'm not sure that's going to happen. I guess Manchin and Chuck Schumer were with President Biden this weekend, so we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, I mean, but conceptually, it does make sense to help encourage industries move toward this cleaner transition to mitigate the impact on customers. I'm not sure that that's going to fly, but if it does, we'll try to figure out a way to work with it.
Last question about the company before we move into Chris Womack. We all take electricity for granted, but the security of the power grid is a concern. You know, how secure is it here in Georgia, and what are you doing to make sure it stays so?
Very secure. I mean, yeah, we get, you know, a couple of million hacks during the course of a given day by somebody, whether it's from Russia or from China or somewhere trying to break in, trying to take control of the power grid. We've got an incredible information technology group that are all the security clearances, and so they understand this stuff very well. I mean, our grid has been hardened. The systems kind of operate automatically, and so I think we're in pretty good shape. But it's something that we just never take for granted because we cannot let that happen. We understand the importance of the service we provide, and so we're always trying to find additional ways to make sure we harden our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now about Chris, you know, I've been up to your office. I walked past that line of pictures of previous presidents, chairmen, and CEOs of the Georgia Power Company, and you know, none of them look like you. I don't know whether it's the eyes or the what, but would you opine on being the first African-American CEO of Georgia Power, how it's impacted you? It must come with its own set of pride and privilege, but also challenges.
And Dave, I'll be honest with you, and I didn't know you were going to ask me that one because it's one that I duck and dodge a lot. I mean, yeah, I'm the 15th president, CEO of Georgia Power Company, and we were formed in 1902 as a Georgia Power, but also as a Georgia Railway Company, as we were operating the streetcars here in the city of Atlanta. But I view myself as the 15th, kind of in succession of many others. Do I reflect on the significance of me being the first African American in this role? I do and I don't. I mean, because and maybe I fall into this false sense of security, or maybe in a false sense of arrogance, to say I've been here 30 plus years. I mean, I've been in 6 different organizations throughout the business. I know everybody in the company. I know how the place operates. I've demonstrated I can get things done. So I say, okay, that was the kind of basis for me assuming this role. I do so also appreciate and recognize the fact that it is a signal to others and a signal to many, because as you talked about my upbringings in South Alabama, no, I never saw an African American doing anything like this. I saw African Americans being preachers and teachers, and that's what my mother wanted me to be. And I did student teaching for about 2 weeks and realized I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So I recognize more from the signal that it sends to others in terms of what capabilities they have. And so it also says to me, because Dave talked about the story of passing through Birmingham and looking at buildings that were taller than 2 stories, and yeah, there was this incredible inquisition and curiosity about what was happening in there. And so with some work he was doing at Crystal Ray, and we participated in that program, one of the things I got excited about when the students from Crystal Ray come to our building. That's what I remember in terms of that curiosity. What is happening inside that big, tall building? Affording them the opportunity to see what happens in there totally dispels this myth and the intimidation that occurs. And so, saying all that to say, it's an honor to serve in this capacity. It's an honor to be the CEO of the power company. Yeah, I know it matters to a lot of people, including my mother, that I'm in this role. And I know hopefully it sends a signal to a lot of other kids, no matter what color they are, no matter what challenges they may have, to say, you know, I can do some things, I can do something that I've never thought I would have the opportunity to do.
Great. Speaking of Crystal Ray, thanks for the opening. The kids, a lot of kids, we have to teach them how to tie a tie and shake a hand. But the other thing we need to do is we have to teach them how to use an elevator, which is amazing. So, Chris, you've been in almost every part of the company since you started. HR, PR, economic development, generation, public policy. I know you liked them all, but aside from being king, what are the other favorite parts of?
No, I mean, if you look at all the jobs I've had in this company, running power plants was probably most enjoyable. I mean, because every day we see the results. I mean, we see megawatts being put on the system. Moving coal around, just seeing the work that we do, all the big mechanical equipment that makes power is always exciting. But then you got a community of people that love their jobs, love the work they do. The family nature of that camaraderie that happens is always fascinating. And then the other thing is, a lot of the employees at the power plants, man, they'll go hunting or fishing on the weekend, and whatever they kill or catch, they bring into the plant that Monday or Tuesday, and they'd either cook it or fry it or whatever. And so I try to be there when they call it a mess of brim, if y'all understand that language. But they bring that brim in and fry it up, and we just have a good old meal. So I love that environment.
Right. So, Chris, you got a scary diagnosis a few years ago, and I wonder whether you feel comfortable talking about it and the extent to which it had some direction and perspective on you in life and business.
I didn't know you were going there. My daughter got married in October 2011. And April 2011, I was diagnosed with liver cancer. And when I got the diagnosis, I went home, and the first thing I did was Google it in terms of what I had. And it said I had less than 6 months left to live. And so I laid on the bed, cried like a baby, and because I didn't think I was going to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. And so after a few other episodes that some people didn't think I would survive, I'm still here. And so for me, I've gotten a second and third lease on life. So every day is very, very, my glass is always half full, and my glass overflows every day because I'm so very thankful to be here, and I fully understand and appreciate the value of life, but also understand kind of my role and what I got to do while I'm here, and to try to make a difference, to try to help somebody, to do the good things the best that I can every day that I'm here. So, no, it's moving and impact me in a very significant way. But I've been blessed with incredible friends who were with me through those periods in my life, and here I am today, still standing.
And we've all noticed the movement. So you're the CEO of one of the largest companies in Georgia and in America. You have a bachelor's degree and a master's, and now studying for your doctorate. What's your drive and passion about education? Is that from your mother, or?
Yeah, it's from my mother, but also just being nuts. I get bored very easily, and so a couple of years ago, I found myself. I went about 3 or 4 days. I just felt like I didn't have anything to do. I had stuff to do, but it really didn't feel meaningful, and I always felt that. I always enjoyed learning. I always enjoyed reading, and I felt like I got my undergraduate degree for my family and for my community. I got my graduate degree for work, and I feel like I'm getting this one for me. So this is something that I wanted to do. But it's been having the opportunity to go to an historically black college has also been incredibly moving, motivating, and exciting. And so there are a lot of things that have come from it. And also, as you get to doctoral programs, there's this real focus on the theory and going deeper into everything that you study and understanding really why something happens, and then researching it, studying it, and then confirming it or denying it. So it's just a more intense learning that I've experienced before, and getting beyond the practical 144 character word letter that we live in today, this whole short, quick fix world we live in today. Trying to understand complex matters in a deeper way has been really exciting to me, and I really, really enjoy it.
Great. So what keeps you up at night?
Making sure all the employees at the company are safe. That's the first thing I worry about, and then probably my kids. But but keeping the company, keeping the employees of our company, because it's a very, very tough, dangerous business, and so making sure they're safe is kind of my number one priority.
Great. And one last question before we turn it over. How's the job impacted your handicap?
It's gotten a lot worse. It's going the wrong direction.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. We have time for a few questions, a few moments to ask. Anyone have a question? Yes, Martha.
Chris, so refreshed to hear your outlook on leadership, and we're all excited to see where you're going to take the company. I want to bring you back to the subject of solar power and ask, from my layman's perspective, I look at an increasing demand for power as we get out of the business of using fossil fuels and see kind of no end in sight for the demand for clean energy. And I wonder why you have capped the consumer's role in making the capital investment. I think there are 5,000 slots for people to put solar power in their buildings before, and you're out of slots. I mean, why wouldn't you want to corral as much consumer capital as you possibly could to help with that journey?
Yeah, and we will. I mean, I think we did that initially because not showing what the market was going to demand, what the market was going to ask for, and not to put so much out there that we have to spread that across the entire customer base. So yeah, with the demand that we're seeing, you'll see some adjustments in that cap. And right now, we've got a couple thousand megawatts of solar on the grid. We're moving towards 6,000 megawatts over the next 2 years. So yeah, you'll continue to see the increase in solar energy and capacity in this state going forward. And yeah, you'll see some adjustments in those caps. But once again, we're trying to make sure that all those costs of solar and that some people want, everybody doesn't want, but we don't have to spread it in ways that doesn't put burdens on folks who that's not what they want to do. I'll say that. Yes, and so we'll make that available. We'll make that opportunity available to those that want to. So that's forthcoming. Ann Curry, I see.
Yep, there's Ann.
My whole career, we've relied on Georgia Power for community leadership, and I am very grateful for that. Thank you. But in the past, it might have been a little more mainstream investments that we came to Georgia Power to talk about their leadership. And it feels to me, Chris, that the kinds of things you are doing now, your investments in community development, in HBCUs, the Propel Center, Ed Farm, things like that, are a little more cutting edge than what we might have done 10, 15 years ago. And I'm wondering if that was a difficult sale internally and with your board, and whether you have advice for the rest of us in the room who may want to follow that example.
And I would tell you, it has not been. I mean, Tom Fanning, chairman of CEO, and others, they have not. They get it. I mean, we tell the story. We understand where we are in this community and in this country, and we understand the opportunity that we have to be a citizen wherever we serve, and it may look differently, but we have to do some things a little different than we've done it in the past. Yeah, a lot of things that we've done, long-term, long-standing organizations in this town will continue to be there. At the same time, I think we've got to look to do things in some different ways than we've done them in the past, and that's kind of reflective of those kind of investments and initiatives that we're advancing going forward, and we'll continue to do that.
Back at Robert.
Thanks for your investments. Robert Franklin, Investments. Chris, why a PhD in political science, and what are you reading now that you wish the whole world would read?
I'm reading a bunch of Frantz Fanon. And from a political theorist, and this is a guy from Martinique, but spent time in Algeria looking at the Algerian revolution, and so it's kind of but it goes real deep in the topic of race and colonialism. So it gives race a whole different perspective. I've always loved politics, and so I dealt with it from the practical side, but I've always been intrigued about looking at it in a deeper level. So that's kind of that motivation for studying political science at this level. So you're familiar with Frantz Fanon? Yep.
Wonderful. Chris and Dave, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, and we really appreciate your leadership in this community on so many fronts. Thank you.